Hello, hello. I wanted to pop on today and talk a little bit about the importance of regulating the nervous system because that's something that I've been finding quite often within my practice lately. And I think it's a very worthy topic of conversation. um, to start, a little bit of story time. I know I haven't been making many of these videos. I do a lot of my own, obviously, personal and private practice with um, journaling, with meditation, with a lot of introspection and quiet reflection. And then I like to bring these topics or these concepts out. Today's it's definitely been a combination of things that have brought me to the point where I've needed to rely more in a bigger way on my practice. There'd been a lot of things that, not in any bad way, but were really starting to kind of like weigh on my nervous system. And it was more just like being busy while balancing work, the art, like the business, motherhood, womanhood, balancing my own chronic illness, big situational and environmental things happening that required a lot of my attention, like very back to back. And a lot of like the etheric world as well, kind of constantly playing an effect. And so a lot of the practices that I found and continue to find myself resisting, like yin, like meditation, like breath work, I've been feeling so much more called to them and so much more eager to embrace the stillness and the softness and the quiet. And I think that's because of how absolutely important those practices are to the body as a whole, to the autonomic nervous system, to the parasympathetic nervous system, which in essence is your fight and your flight and your ability to kind of soothe and recover the body while it's taking on so much external stress. Um, Things like yoga, things like dance, singing, chanting, breathing, proper breath work, art, expression, stillness, sitting, contemplative meditation, the sound work. There are so many ways to help work with those, what sometimes feel like invisible systems. Those systems within the body, whenever there's a constant state of imbalance, especially in things like trauma and things like constant fear, constant repression, constant obsession, like anything that is left too far out of balance is very likely to lead to an imbalance within the body. And in a lot of big ways, that leads to things like disease and permanent, like like compromised immune systems. That you got one of these, you got one vessel, and just because you're nice to it for a couple minutes, in essence, after being awful to it for years or neglectful to it for years, it doesn't just go away. And so we find ways to balance it. We find ways to help our body hold that much experience. The experience most recently, I think, that has just triggered like the whole to want to move, to want to like now we're feeling such a mad, like a big stirring. Was there was a shooting in my building this past weekend. The floor underneath us, there was like shots fired at a door. It was a mistargeted door. They thought that the person living there was still someone who'd moved out a couple years ago and was a drug dealer and like a lost person. And instead, it's a young family that lives there. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Thankfully, they fled. They didn't shoot or anything else. But that's another downside is they've fled. They're gone. We have not found them yet. There were investigators and police officers here all weekend, basically. Um, and really nothing was found. So I'd recognize that within myself. This is triggered a lot, obviously, from my PTSD, from being on the streets, from being an addict, living within really like sketchy and unsafe environments, and having worked so hard to get away from that, and then having it constantly brought back in my face. Not only is a sign to me like that never goes away. That is this path. This is this place here. Earth is fucking filled with nonsense, and it's ugly. It's ugly, and you got to learn to be able to find that beauty, to be able to see past that ugly and be like, oh, you're just wounded too. But even then, and that's like what I'd said before, you can't just love that better. You can't. Like, you can love and send enough love into the ether to kind of counteract some of that, but that love is needed for yourself. That love is needed to help recover your nervous system instead of trying to help someone else figure out their own balance in life, because that is not our place. So, as far as the nervous system goes and recovering the nervous system, finding the breath, finding the self, finding center again, um, sometimes it's as easy as pulling yourself out and smudging. It's as easy as hydrating, properly hydrating, giving yourself some good food, some greens, some good iron, good protein. Just nourish the body. Other times it's fasting. It's letting the body have that break so that it may digest, it may move through its processes. And that, I think, is where the importance of listening and truly deeply listening to the body are so important. Yoga, again, there's movement, stillness, listening to source. Today it was snowing. My body was against me. I'm sick right now. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Um, and there were so many things where I was still trying to get ready in the morning, go to the gym and do my normal. And everything in source today just said no. Slow down. Breathe. Smudge, cleanse, pray. Fucking pray. And that is something that I've been doing more regularly for myself. After every day after getting home from the gym, I've been coming, and I call it songs that hug the nervous system, but it's just like that indie kind of chill, happy, good fucking messages back and just reminding me like I'm not separate from anything. I'm not separate from source, but I need to be able to fill my own bubble. You cannot give from an empty cup. A dear, dear friend of mine and wealth of knowledge of a teacher has shared with me from day one for about 8 years, and I still need the constant reminder from him, from source sometimes, that the deepest practice doesn't happen when you're in those complicated poses or you're moving all that energy out in qigong. Like, yes, a lot of practice happens within that, but the deepest practice happens when we're just breathing, when we are still and focusing on the self, when we are doing those deep, slow scans, those taking those 5 minutes per posture and truly letting ourselves settle in past that discomfort. That is the deepest practice. And then the real transformation happens off the mat. It happens in our day-to-day reaction. We cannot control our environment. Half the time with our messy, egoic human minds, we can't control our own unconscious reactions. We get better at it, but we cannot always control the immediate just response. But what we can control is how we recover. We can control how we choose to come back down to self. And that is the hugging, breathing, feeling, holding the nervous system, holding space for self, letting yourself exist here, pouring that love that you'd pour into someone else into yourself, because you cannot change them. You cannot change the world, but you can change yourself, your vibration, and your environment. You got control of that shit. That's it. Off to manifest whatever the fuck source is telling us we need to be doing next, because it's very, very apparent now that things are moving quickly and we need to be dancing that dance while it does. Namaste, all. I love you all, despite my ability to see you. Hi. And I hope that you hold yourself a little extra gently. You give yourself that love, that compassion today. Go breathe.